again. All right. Well, today we are talking about the Ghosts album. Yay! The first music album I completed for the Nerdy Workouts project was actually for the Rogue Moons. If you watch my video about that album, you'll know that I was on a steep learning curve because although I composed a lot, I had never edited music before. One of the many things I learned from doing that album was that I needed to balance efficiency with creativity a little better in order to make workout music albums within an acceptable time frame. I don't want to go months between workout series just because I'm too busy trying to make masterpieces. So I had to let myself off the hook a little. I've explained that in my intro to the Nerdy Workout music albums. The Ghosts album was my first opportunity to fine-tune my composition process. So it was also a sort of a trial and error process, much like the Rogue's Moon album had been. You can read more about that on another blog post that I will link to. So to that end, this album was kind of experimental, but I will talk a little bit about each piece in alphabetical order. So first is A Consecrated Haunting. I came up with this one while I was just goofing around on my keyboard because I needed a mental break from working on one of the other pieces for the Ghosts album. I don't remember which one. But I liked what I did, and I decided to develop it further. As I did so, the piece reminded me of being inside a shadowy, tragic church. Not exactly creepy, but with a sense that the ghosts there have a higher purpose, something dark but holy. Yeah. Consecrated. That word means to be set apart for something specific, special, and often sacred. So it seemed to fit this type of haunting. Next is A Guest in the Attic. This piece was originally called Chained. I was thinking about ghosts like Jacob Marley from A Christmas Carol. The forceful opening chords of boom, 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 boom. They were meant to convey the heavy and laborious steps of a ghost with chains bound to his ankles, like boom, 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 boom. Like these were feet. Thank goodness they're not. Can you imagine trying to play the piano with feet? I mean, some people can, but I can't anyway. However, as I continued working on the piece, I increasingly envisioned a mysterious but brash ghost living in an attic, making strange, unwelcome noises, confident that no one could make him leave. Something like a cross between Jacob Marley and Beetlejuice. I think he still has chains. He still has chains in my imagination, but the focus of the piece became more about his attitude and residency in the attic. So I changed the name. Next is A Memory of Heartbeats. So I was inspired with this piece when I thought about how some ghosts might miss having bodies. I think the very act of being alive and having flesh and blood makes bodies musical in a way. They have beats, rhythms, cadences, especially like our voices, but everything about us is a little musical in some way. I'm sure there are lots of really dirty or bathroom jokes that you can make about that, but I'm not going to do that. Like, I mean it. I think, outside of the obvious humor involved in this, I do think that there is something musical about being alive. And how much of that goes away when you're a spirit. So while making this piece, I imagined a ghost reminiscing about being alive and how bittersweet and beautiful it was. So there are 2 piano tracks, and one of them keeps the rhythm of a heartbeat for most of the piece. Next, we have A Message from the Poltergeist. This piece was probably the most experimental out of everything in the album. I wanted to see what chord progressions sounded like if each subsequent note was a minor third from the one before it. Then I did the same with diminished and augmented intervals. My original thought was that it could sound like eerie footsteps from an unseen spirit, but it turned out sounding harsher and weirder than I expected, actually. In fact, it took a lot of work to make it listenable. And by the end of the piece, it felt like something that would come from a grouchy or even malevolent poltergeist that wants you to know how much it dislikes having you in the same space. Next, we have Her Voice in Your Ear, or Ah, Sylvia. For this piece, I was thinking about how chilling it can feel when you think you hear a voice that doesn't seem to be real. Like, you look around and there's nobody there. I also thought about it from the perspective of a ghost who wants to talk to you but can't reach you or convince you that she's real, but she keeps trying anyway. The Ah, Sylvia part of the title is a reference to a webcomic called Wildlife, and I forgot to double check the comic author's name, so I'm going to do that. Oh, right, Pascal. Anyway, the web URL, if you are interested in looking up the comic, is wildlifecomic.com. I have been reading it almost since it began, like over a decade ago. And in fact, most of my Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings begin with me checking for an update. I know that some people are subscribed to updates, but I kind of like the surprise of looking it up in the morning. It's a wonderful comic. One of the characters is a ghost named Sylvia. She is sweet, thoughtful, and close to the protagonist, but she also exudes loneliness and sadness, sometimes in this really tragic, angry way. And I worry that her story within the story will end tragically. I feel like there's so much that she wants to say that she just can't yet for whatever reason, and so I couldn't help but think of her as the mascot for this piece. Which is also why I'm dedicating it to her and to that comic. Some people send fan art. I send fan music. And yes, that is my voice doing the vocals. Took me a while to get that right. I am super picky about how I sound. Next, we have Right Through Me. Right Through Me was probably the second title that popped into my mind after The Weight of Ectoplasm. The image that kept coming up to me was the scene from the movie Casper from the 1990s when Cat reaches for Casper's hand, and but it goes right through. It's so sad to me that a ghost might want to touch someone but be unable to do so. Even so, it's a bonding moment for the two of them. I wanted to capture that sadness and hope and strangeness all in the same piece. It took me a while to actually like this one. I felt like it didn't come together quite as easily as the others. Okay, now on to The Breath of a Ghost. Yes, ghosts don't technically have breath, but that's what I thought was interesting about the title. If ghosts had breath, what would it look like? Or what would it be like? The first thing, of course, that came to my mind was seeing your breath in cold weather. I feel like that's probably a pretty obvious image to come to the mind. But I also thought that just talking about the breath of a ghost might be anything that symbolizes a ghost's quote-unquote life. Whatever keeps it existing and going after death. With that in mind, the piece is supposed to sound a bit ethereal, but also grounded or solid. Next, we have The Weight of Ectoplasm. This was actually the first piece that I titled and composed for the album. I've always been interested in the theory that ectoplasm is the matter of which ghosts are made. As with all matter, okay. Next we have the weight of ectoplasm. This was the first piece that I titled and composed for the album. I have always been interested in the theory that ectoplasm is the matter out of which ghosts are made. As with all matter, we should be able to feel and measure it, even see it, at least if we have the right scientific equipment, right? But ghosts are notoriously weightless and mostly untouchable, even though they can still move and touch and break things and make noise. So I'm fascinated by the juxtaposition of a ghost's emotionally heavy existence with the comparatively light weight of its matter. Although both, of course, are mysterious and seemingly illogical. I wanted this piece to feel heavy, light, and mysterious all at once. And finally, we have unfinished business. To be honest, I didn't have a very special thought process for this one. Obviously, given that one of the most popular theories for why ghosts are forced to hang back on Earth is, but before crossing over, is that they have unfinished business. It seems like that's a... Okay, last we have unfinished business. To be honest, I didn't have a very special thought process for this one. Obviously, given one of the most popular theories for why ghosts are forced to hang back on Earth before crossing over to the afterlife, Unfinished Business makes a great song, a great song title, at least for an album about ghosts. However, at the point that I was trying to come up with a 9th piece for the album, the process of making it had already taken much longer than I had planned or wanted. So I mentally reviewed some of my old pieces that I could upcycle to save time, and I landed on this one. I composed this piece when I was a teenager and wanted to master minor keys. I was just exploring and applying what I'd learned to, anyway. If it had a name, it's been lost to time. But it's simple enough that it has remained in my mind all these years. I had no trouble remembering it and dressing it up a bit. Plus, it has an air of determination that I imagine a lot of ghosts would feel about completing their unfinished business so that they can actually rest in peace. So that is all that I have to say about the Ghost album for now. I hope that was interesting for you. And I definitely really hope that you enjoy the workouts and the music album. Here's to continuing to make more and getting better each time. Thank you again for being here, and until next time.